Validation is often treated like a moment, a test, a launch, something you do once to see if an idea works. But real validation isn't an event. It's a structure you build so reality can speak before you harden anything. When people talk about proving an idea, they usually mean exposure. Did anyone click? Did anyone sign up? Did anyone buy? Those signals matter, but they don't validate systems. They only show interest. Systems are validated by behavior, what people actually do once they enter, not what they say they might do from a distance. This is what proof before product actually means. It doesn't mean selling something early. It means observing movement before you freeze design. A product is a fixed interpretation of how you think value flows. It encodes assumptions about what people want, how they decide, what outcome matters, and what they'll tolerate along the way. If those assumptions are wrong, the product rarely collapses in one dramatic moment. It erodes. Support grows. Confusion spreads. Positioning drifts. Retention weakens. And slowly, the system becomes heavier to carry. Validation structures exist to prevent that. Their job is not to make money. Their job is to make truth visible before it becomes expensive to change. A real validation structure is simply the smallest environment where real behavior can occur. Someone can encounter a promise without your translation. They can move toward an outcome. They can give something meaningful. They can experience delivery, and something actually happens on the other side. This is why validation can't live in abstraction. Polls and surveys can reveal language and emotion, but they don't reveal commitment. Proof begins where someone gives time, effort, attention, money, or risk. That's where systems start, because that's where behavior starts. Good validation structures are intentionally provisional. They aren't designed to impress. They're designed to stay open. They're light enough to change, narrow enough to observe, and unfinished enough to expose what's really happening. Their value is not polish. Their value is contact. Most builders invert this. They try to validate finished things. They design brands, funnels, frameworks, and features, then release them and read the response as proof. But by that point, structure is already set. Feedback doesn't feel informative anymore. It feels personal. Resistance doesn't feel architectural. It feels like rejection. And because so much identity is already invested, learning slows. Validation structures protect you from that attachment. Nothing inside them is meant to be defended. Everything inside them is meant to be watched. There are 3 qualities that make a validation structure real. First, someone must be able to enter it without you translating it. If the system only functions when you are present to explain, reinterpret, or reassure, then it's not yet a structure. It's still a conversation. Second, there has to be real exchange. Something that carries weight must move. Not necessarily money, but something meaningful. Time, energy, reputation, effort, change. Without exchange, there is no proof. There is only interest. Third, there has to be consequence. Something actually changes after participation. Not just how someone feels, but what state they are in. New clarity, new access, new capability, new relief, new difficulty, something you can observe. When these exist, behavior begins to show itself. You start seeing where people move easily and where they hesitate, where they get confused, where they leave, where they complete, where they come back, where they tell someone else, where they disappear. Every one of those movements contains information your system can use. This is why validation structures have to exist before product. Products optimize delivery. Validation structures interrogate assumptions. They ask whether the promise attracts the right people, whether the path makes sense to them, whether the outcome actually satisfies, whether the experience creates momentum or relief, and whether the result naturally points somewhere next. Those questions cannot be answered by attention metrics. They can only be answered by participation. Another quiet trap shows up here, confusing revenue with proof. Money validates willingness. It does not validate structure. People will pay for confusing things. They will buy misaligned things. They will purchase outcomes they don't yet understand. Revenue without completion doesn't prove a system works. Revenue without retention doesn't prove anything is being built. Proof isn't, did this sell? Proof is, did this change something in a way that can repeat? That's what validation structures are designed to reveal. They prioritize depth over width, observation over persuasion, clarity over polish. They don't try to win. They try to show you what is. And because of that, they often feel fragile. You're close to the user, close to the experience, close to the confusion, close to the relief, close to the breakdowns and the moments where things suddenly make sense. There's no abstraction layer yet. No automation buffer. You're watching the system behave in real time. That proximity isn't inefficiency. It's literacy. It teaches you what deserves to be preserved, what needs to be removed, what should be strengthened, and what should never be scaled. Over time, patterns begin to appear. The same questions, the same objections, the same misunderstandings, the same drop-off points, the same moments of clarity, the same returns. When patterns appear, structure becomes possible. This is where product naturally emerges, not as an invention, but as a crystallization. Explanations turn into onboarding. Fixes turn into processes. Questions turn into positioning. Outcomes turn into promises. Returns turn into retention logic. A product is what remains after enough behavior has repeated that the system begins to know itself. Proof before product is not a marketing idea. It's an architectural one. It keeps you from freezing the wrong thing. It keeps you from scaling noise. It keeps you from optimizing confusion. It keeps you from building beautiful containers around broken flows. Instead, it lets structure grow out of contact, out of how people actually move, what they actually value, what actually changes, what actually continues. And when product finally appears in that order, it feels different. It's quieter, simpler, easier to use. It requires less explanation. It creates fewer surprises. Because it wasn't designed in a room. It was designed in contact. And contact is where all resilient income systems are born.